Welcome to another weekend of college football. Matthew and Randy, as we get you ready for it here on STL Sports Central, presented by DraftKings, where the crown is yours. There's some big games this weekend, and obviously a lot on the line for the University of Missouri. The first CFP rankings came out. Mizzou is ranked number 22, and we've talked about it before, but now we've got visuals. A possible path to the CFP for your Missouri Tigers, who take on Texas A&M, the third-ranked team in the land, 2:30 at Faurot Field, and that one can be seen on ABC.
So, yeah, what we're going to have up on the screen here for everybody is just the leftover schedules, and not the full resume, but just the resume that is material to each of these teams, because I kind of want to see the scenarios that could play out, because obviously we're already in a kind of a fantasy land here. Mizzou has a freshman quarterback, and we're talking about them taking down both Texas A&M and Oklahoma. Let's just get the scenario out in front, because that's the only way they get to the playoff. Mm-hmm. So we talked about this on Wednesday, I want to say. So here on Saturday morning, as we go into things, let's put this actually into a little bit better perspective. Let's give you all graphics, and hey, let's have a little fun with color-coded names on the graphics.
I love the color-coded nature of things. I love the fact that we have Mizzou winning out. So it's not just beating A&M and Oklahoma. It's beating Mississippi State and Arkansas as well, and finishing with a record of 10-2. So we've got the Tigers running the table the rest of the way, correct?
Yes, that's how it goes. But obviously, there's other teams happening. There's a lot of other games being played. And so those things are material. As you can see there, Texas, it matters in the grand scheme of the SEC, because they have both Georgia and A&M. If A&M loses both games against Mizzou and Texas, God only knows in this scenario, I'm just going to have them losing one of them. Georgia has a game against Texas. Then they also have a game that will be very material to the rest of the college football playoff, which is going to be that Georgia Tech matchup, because obviously somebody from the ACC is going to be getting in there. And if Georgia Tech wins that one, they'll be fast-tracked to that path right there. Ole Miss is interesting because they are going to win out. That's something that is really interesting to me, is because Ole Miss is going to be 11-1, because I can't see them losing to the Citadel, Florida, or Mississippi State after a bye. So Ole Miss is going to win out. So that's going to be an interesting factor.
Win the Egg Bowl.
Exactly. That's going to be an interesting factor into all of this. And then you have Alabama, who still has OU on the line, and they have a crazy schedule. Alabama and Oklahoma both have had wild schedules up to this point. Alabama lost to FSU, but then has ripped off wins at Georgia, against Vandy at home, at Mizzou, and against Tennessee at home. So, Alabama's taking care of their schedule beyond that opening game. Then you have Oklahoma.
And by the way, I don't see Alabama losing any of those games either. Do you?
I do not. And that's an interesting factor here, because as you now look at Oklahoma's schedule after their bye this weekend, they have Alabama and Missouri. And in my scenario for Missouri to win out, and because I agree with you, I have Oklahoma winning both games, or losing both games, excuse me. So does an 8-4 Oklahoma, all of a sudden, how does that actually look as a win for Missouri? That kind of becomes something that after the fact, how does it look? Oklahoma, by the way, has had a crazy schedule of their own this season. They beat Michigan, who's still ranked. They beat Auburn when they were ranked. Obviously, Auburn, really no more shine left on that.
Their coach.
Yeah, exactly. No more shine left on that game. They got pretty well handled by Texas at Texas. Mississippi, Ole Miss cruised. The game was a little bit closer than the score, or was not as close as the 12-point or 8-point differentiation there actually says the game was, and they beat up on Tennessee. So Oklahoma's had a weird schedule, but nonetheless, they would be, again, 8-4 in this situation. Then you have Vanderbilt, which I put in there because they are above Missouri, and I can't be completely biased, but nonetheless, I think what we saw against Texas and Diego Pavia is having some tough games against good defenses.
I would think that the only real chance they have to lose is the last game of the year, right? At Tennessee?
Yes, and depending on what Tennessee does, and I don't have their schedule in here, but if Tennessee is still a ranked win for Vanderbilt, they would have ranked wins over Mizzou, LSU, and Tennessee, but the LSU one as well.
So and then head-to-head too.
Yeah, and then they'd also, of course, they'd have the head-to-head. And then we look at the Mizzou game if they run out everything here. So let's look at these actual scenarios in concrete fashion here. So what we have here is A&M losing to Mizzou and beating Texas.
Okay, good.
Texas beats Georgia but loses to A&M. Georgia loses to Texas but beats Georgia Tech. Ole Miss wins out, Alabama wins out, and OU loses to Bama and Mizzou. So what you have there then is 11-1 A&M, 11-1 Alabama, 11-1 Ole Miss, 10-2 Georgia, 9-3 Texas, 8-4 Oklahoma. By the way, if you're looking at the SEC standings, I checked this out. Bama would win the SEC undefeated in the conference, and they would go up in the SEC championship against, I believe, Ole Miss, who would be 7-1 in conference play, but I think we're getting down to the fourth tiebreaker because Ole Miss and Texas A&M schedules line up in almost zero ways. The way now that these big conferences, you can have teams like Ole Miss and A&M where they play almost none of the same teams this year. They played both Florida and LSU, but they both beat them. And so it's completely thrown up in the air exactly how that want to go because so just looking at SEC rankings, that's how that's going to go. So you have that for the overall resumes of these teams. And let's throw in Mizzou's resume if this happens. They are 10-2. Their best wins are against A&M and at OU. They don't really have any bad losses because it would be Vanderbilt and Bama. What do you think? Where do you think you rank all these teams if this is how it lays out?
Okay, if Alabama finishes the SEC season undefeated, they're number one, right?
They're the top SEC squad.
There's a ton of respect for, and there's also a great narrative for Ole Miss because of Lane Kiffin and the backup quarterback.
But look at that. Their best win would be an 8-4 OU team who, yes, beat Michigan and Tennessee. But their best win would then be an 8-4 OU team, whereas A&M would conceivably have wins against, and I forgot to put this in best wins after the fact. My apologies. A&M would have wins against Texas, at Notre Dame, and at I have it in there. Sorry, they would have wins at Notre Dame and at Texas. So immediately A&M, even if they're not playing in the conference championship game, they have a better resume in 100% than Ole Miss.
But in this scenario, though,
they lost to Mizzou. Is that a bad loss?
It's their only loss, though.
It would be their only loss. But
so if you lose at 22nd ranked Mizzou, it's got to be Alabama, and in my opinion, A&M playing for the SEC championship, right? Because the Ole Miss or the Ole Miss schedule is not as strong as the A&M schedule. If both are 11-1, the A&M strength of schedule would trump the Ole Miss strength of schedule, right?
So
although Ole Miss's loss is
Ole Miss's loss is Georgia,
right? So
here's the SEC tiebreakers. Head-to-head competition among the tied teams. You don't have that. Record versus among all common conference opponents among tied teams. They only each lost one game. Yeah. One of them lost it to Mizzou. One of them lost it to Georgia.
And I'll point this out. I'm just looking at it from a CFP perspective.
Yes, that's fine. Sorry, go ahead.
So if you're looking at it from a college football playoff perspective, and then let's just presume either Ole Miss or A&M suffers a second loss in the SEC championship game, they're still in the top 8. I think. I think all three of those SEC teams are in the top 8 in the CFP.
I think, undoubtedly, and for our purposes of our conversation, all three of those resumes, even though Ole Miss's resume isn't good at all, they're 11-1, potentially playing in a conference championship game. All three of those teams definitively above Mizzou in any sort of college football ranking.
And the way the ranking works, Ole Miss is number 6 right now. If they don't lose another game, there's no way they're going down in the rankings.
Exactly. So then we have Georgia at 10-2 with wins over Tennessee, Ole Miss, and in this scenario, Georgia Tech, and no bad losses. Yeah. In that scenario, their only losses again would be to Texas and Bama. So in that scenario, Georgia's got a better resume than Mizzou, undoubtedly.
Yes, no doubt.
Then we get into the actual real conversation where Mizzou could be the 5th ranked SEC team, potentially sneaking in at 11. Conceivably, the 12th ranked team in the playoff would then be the Group of 5 team, and this is hopefully then an SEC team, an ACC team jumps up ahead so that you're not losing 2 spots behind in the rankings.
And you got Notre Dame,
and you got Notre Dame in there, because in my opinion, if this breaks down, they're obviously better at 10-2 than both Texas and OU. Yep. Vandy's not in the conversation anymore. Now it just gets to a numbers games of where's an ACC team, where's Notre Dame, so on and so forth.
And it's possible. Just as an example, if Texas Tech beats BYU in the Big 12 championship game,
Mhm.
and they both finish with one loss. I would think the committee, again, because those two teams are in the top 10 right now, I would think that the committee would take them over. It's going to be hard for Mizzou, even if they don't lose another game, to pass a one-loss BYU and certainly a one-loss Texas Tech, because just like we said with Ole Miss, if Texas Tech wins out, they aren't going down in the rankings, and I don't think they'll penalize BYU that much for losing to Texas Tech.
And that's why you guys got to come back here on Monday of the Randy Karraker show at 3 p.m. because we'll have the Texas Tech and BYU head-to-head matchup in the books, and we're going to do some of this resume breaking down for the rest of the college football playoff. The goal today was to kind of hone in on what we were talking about on Wednesday, which was those SEC rankings. Which, if again, this is a very big if, but we'll talk about it because it's Mizzou. Mm-hmm. They can get into that fifth SEC spot. And that's the path right there. But other things have to happen. Here's the thing. I drew this out exactly perfect for Mizzou because, I mean, if Texas beats A&M in the last game of the season, then they're 10-2. A&M's 10-2. Texas then has wins over Oklahoma, Vandy, Georgia, and A&M with a bad loss against Florida. Against Mizzou's only wins being against A&M and OU. OU in this situation is, again, 8-4. At that point, Texas probably, just because they're flipping Texas, is over Mizzou. Yep. They're starting from a higher ranking in the first place. To your point correctly, they wouldn't be losing a game in this situation. So Texas, all of a sudden, they're the fifth SEC team. Mizzou's getting bunched out. So there are not just situations where Mizzou has to win every game, but a lot of these things all have to break out exactly in Mizzou's way. And if they don't, all of a sudden one of these teams just kind of stabilizes. One of these teams sits at, multiple teams sit at 10 wins instead of somebody falling down to 9 or 8 in this scenario. And all of a sudden Mizzou's just kind of, hoofed.
Yeah. And by the way, let's throw one other Big 12 move in there, because today, maybe the game of the day in the Big 12, BYU at Texas Tech. We mentioned that BYU undefeated. Texas Tech is 8-1. Texas Tech is a 10.5 point favorite in that game. Wow. If Texas Tech covers that 10.5 or beats BYU by 10, even though it's at Texas Tech, and then would beat BYU in the Big 12 championship game, that might give Mizzou a chance to catch up to a BYU if BYU loses twice to Texas Tech.
Yeah, and again, the Georgia Tech part of the Georgia schedule is also fascinating to me because, again, the ACC sitting there, and if somehow they all trip over their own feet and are ranked below 12, they get to cannibalize a spot anyhow, which is annoying, but is the way that the playoff is built. So it's kind of, if you're a Mizzou fan, you got to be rooting for Texas Tech. You got to be rooting for some ACC teams to keep on, doing their jobs. Maybe you got to root for a Georgia Tech loss against Georgia. I didn't even put that into this scenario. I right now, heck, that's one thing I'm thinking of right now, Randy. If Georgia were to lose, are we rooting, or if you're a Mizzou fan, I think you're rooting for Georgia Tech in that game, because it guarantees the ACC's champion spot is most likely already in the top 10. And Georgia probably beats. If we're being honest, Georgia probably beats Texas and is probably still 10-2 in this scenario. So it doesn't do anything. It doesn't do much to the Georgia spot, but it potentially helps you not get that spot cannibalized by a low-ranking ACC champion.
And the fly in the ointment there, the monkey in the wrench.
Oh, I like that.
Could be Louisville in the ACC. Yes. I think that they're kind of scary, because if they would win out, and they only have one loss, and they do have that win over Miami, which doesn't look as great as it did, but their loss is to the top team in the ACC right now, Virginia, 30-27 in overtime. Granted, it was at Louisville, but Louisville wraps up. They play Cal at home. They get Clemson at home. They go to SMU, obviously tough, and then they get Kentucky at home. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that Louisville could finish their ACC season with one loss and their overall season at 11-1, which would be a huge, as we mentioned, monkey in the wrench.
And Virginia would then finish with one loss overall. Correct. and one loss in conference play.
Yeah,
because they lost to Louisville.
Yeah, so and those two would probably meet again in the ACC championship game and it would just all be a big mess. Mizzou, a 6.5-point dog. I have no idea what to think because I just have no idea how Matt Zollers is going to play. I do think that the Mizzou defense will be fine against Marcel Reed. I think that they'll be able to handle the offense. And I'm not saying that they'll shut them down, but I would say that if Mizzou can hold them to 21, 24, that would be a win for the Tigers. The question is, can Mizzou score that much? I believe they'll contain Reed. I think the biggest factor in this game, and Marcel Reed's a big factor, obviously, Zollers is an X factor because we just don't know. But I think how does, when Zollers has to throw, and there are going to be 3rd and longs where Zollers is going to have to throw, how does the Mizzou offensive line stand up to the Texas A&M pass rush? I think that's the biggest factor in the game.
For me, it comes down to the most dynamic part of Mizzou's season. At least the last half of this season has been the defense. Obviously, the first few games it was Ahmad Hardy and the running game.
Mm-hmm.
It's the defense right now.
Yep.
Texas A&M's offensive line, I legitimately think can neutralize the Missouri pass rush. So the question now becomes: do you blitz, or can you win in coverage? And the answer to that is you blitz, because you can't win in coverage. This group isn't going to consistently be able to win in coverage. Marcel Reed's going to extend plays and things like that. That's the difference between the Diego Pavia game plan and the A&M Marcel Reed game plan. Is they're not going to be able to bully the Vanderbilt offensive, the A&M offensive line the way that they were able to the Vanderbilt offensive line. That's the thing I'm worried about with Mizzou. That's why I think, to your point, my big issue is not necessarily Mizzou getting blown out here, but if Vanderbilt scores 24 points, and let's just talk about from the line perspective, if Vanderbilt scores 24 points, can Mizzou score 17? I don't know.
That's the X factor.
And so that's why I think this game ending up being like A&M 24, Mizzou 13 is kind of what I think might be the most like realistic overall outcome.
I think that's pretty accurate.
Or 21-13. They're 21-13. 21-13 might be because then you're maybe there's a chance for a backdoor cover or something like that, but Mizzou has to go for the touchdown, obviously, down to 8, so they can't go for the field goal to cover it the way you'd want them to if you're a betting person. So I think something like 21-13's unfortunately realistic because we have a freshman quarterback, and I think the defense might finally get some cracks on the back end.
2:30 game on ABC. Don't forget you can join the post-game show right after that game right here on STL Sports Central.
One final thing. Iowa gave Indiana a run. Do they give Oregon a scare?
I would think so, yeah.
Again,
so. That kind of like the Mizzou game. I would think, especially being at Iowa, I would think that they'll be able to keep that Oregon offense at a reasonable level. However, it won't be a big scare because I still don't have any faith in any offense that Kirk Ferentz runs.
Yeah, they lost. That Indiana game was 20-15. Yeah, that's a fair criticism.
There we go. That's Matthew. I'm Randy. Wilson got us on the air here at STL Sports Central. And we want you to know that starting December 1st, we've got a big thing happening. DraftKings is going to go live in Missouri. And all you need to do is download the app right now. And new Missouri customers can download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. And when they do go live, just place a $5 bet to unlock $300 in bonus bets. Now, this starts November 17th. Create your DraftKings Sportsbook account in Missouri and get ready for launch day on December 1st. DraftKings Sportsbook will bring everything you need to elevate your game day. Live in-game betting, that's pretty cool. You can bet on the score at the end of the next quarter. Lightning fast payouts and endless ways to get in on the action, all right from your phone. And when we officially go live in Missouri, you'll be betting with a sportsbook app trusted by millions. It's safe, it's secure, and has fast money withdrawals. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and grab $300 in bonus bets with just a $5 bet when we go live December 1st in partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY at 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bet must win to receive reward. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio.
Enjoy your college football Saturday, and we will see you Monday to review it on the Randy Karraker Show on STL Sports Central.